In tonight's documentary, I will be talking to people about what it's like to be homeless in Norfolk and what the struggles are of sleeping rough.
It really affected me mentally, psychologically.
You just do go downhill a bit and you do lose a bit of yourself.
I will also be speaking to those who help and find out for myself what it's like to sleep rough. According to recent figures collected in 2015, more than 300 people sleep rough every night in Norwich. My name is Orla and I'm going to be investigating the struggles that homeless people face every day. I'm making this documentary to investigate the lives of homeless people, and I will be taking part in the Sleeping Rough experiment to get a small insight to what it's like to be sleeping rough on a winter's night. In the early hours of the morning on June 10th, 2015, a homeless man was found dead in the underpass on St Stephen's Street in Norwich. His name was Sergio. When he was first found, the police didn't know what caused his death, until it was revealed later that he had suffered from fatal internal injuries. When researching what happened to Sergio, there wasn't a lot of information about his death. It's as if it wasn't an important story. A man was killed that morning due to him being homeless. In what way is that fair? With the winter season approaching, it becomes increasingly difficult for homeless people to get through the following months. The Salvation Army runs a service that provides food every night for people in need. I met with Barry, the soup kitchen coordinator, and Martin, who uses this facility. Do you think homelessness is a problem in Norfolk?
It's a problem throughout the country. We're seeing increased numbers, but the profile has changed. The numbers have increased in Norwich because of the breakdown of family life. We've got more young people on the streets because perhaps parents have broken up, and we've got the issue where people can't afford rents, where in the old days they would live in council houses and there would be subsidised rents. So there's a huge change in the way people become homeless.
So Martin, tell us a bit about yourself. What's your story?
I've been homeless. I was homeless up until very recently. I've been in Bishopbridge House Hostel now for about 3 weeks now. But before that, I was homeless for 42 days on the street, and this is the soup run that I use on an evening to get sandwiches and stuff, which helps a lot.
So how often do you come to the soup run then?
I try to give it a miss if I can, because to be fair, I'm not judgmental in any way, but to be fair, a lot of people come down here with issues like with drink and things like that, and then fights will kick off and things like that. But when you need to eat, you have no choice but to come here and that, so it's not an ideal place to be. But without these people here, without the Salvation Army on the bottom stall there, that would be near on impossible to survive out here.
After visiting Soup Run, it becomes clear that as much as this helps, it's not a permanent solution. I'm now going to speak to Jock Downey, a previous safeguarding officer at a local college, and find out how he feels about youth homelessness. What are the signs of a young person being homeless?
From what we saw and kind of working with young people, and from what staff members saw, very often what you could see is a person coming in looking slightly more unkempt than usual, perhaps struggling for money because they don't have the same access as ever. They might also be hanging around the college at later times in the day or coming in very early.
Do you feel that homelessness affects a young person's mental health?
Yeah, completely. I think there's a lot of things about our mental health where we need to feel safe and connected to a place. And when someone doesn't have a home, when someone doesn't have a bedroom that they can go to, and a place at the end of the day where they can feel safe and comfortable, that starts to knock on who they are as a person. And if they're in that situation for a long time, it can lead to serious depression. So it's a hugely interconnected issue.
I caught up with Wayne Miles, the manager at Winston Court, a home provided by the Benjamin Foundation for young homeless people. He's been working with the foundation for a long time and is familiar with working with people struggling with homelessness. What do you think society views homelessness as, like homeless people?
I think there's always been a certain stigma to it. Homelessness, hostels. I think when people first say those words, what they picture is probably, I don't know, a drug addict or somebody who's dirty and dishevelled and begging on the streets. And hostel, they probably think of a horrible place sort of full of drugs and criminals. I think that's what people springs to mind when you use those words.
It gets to a stage where you just completely ignore them, as if it is like a signpost or a postbox or something just in the street. It's just blended into the atmosphere. That's someone's son or daughter and auntie, whatever.
Yeah.
and I think that needs to change.
Anybody could become homeless. Things can change overnight, and you know, if you were down there, would you want a helping hand up? I think I certainly would.
I'm going to be having a chat with a resident at Winston Court, Glenn. He only recently moved into the house. Before that, he slept rough.
Well, I'm 24. I was living in Essex and my boss retired, so I moved up to here to live close to my dad and that. And then he decided to evict me. And basically I was sort of homeless from that point and sleeping outside a church, well, basically wherever I could get my head down for a bit, and end up down the road in a bomb shelter.
I mean, awful that you had to sleep rough and outside a church. And I mean, how long were you doing that for?
I was outside the church for 3 days, and then the police come and moved me on. And they basically dropped me off in North Walsham and said, you best better go find a hostel in Norwich, which was absolutely useless, really. And then the bomb shelter, I think I was in there about 2 weeks, I believe it was. You just make do with what you got. When you have nothing, it's literally whatever you can find to use, you use at the end of the day.
When you first thought, God, I'm going to be homeless, you know, what were you feeling like? I mean, what is that?
You don't think anything, you don't know what to think. It's literally like, oh, what do I do? I literally come home, my bags are sitting outside the door, and it's like, right, it's 5 o'clock at night, I have about £1 in my pocket. What do I do?
Well, how do you think society views homelessness?
I feel they take it on board, but they don't care. If they did, they would do a hell of a lot more. They'd have a hell of a lot more around to actually help it. Because I sit there applying to hostels, and they say, no, we can't house you. We have a room available, but we can't house you due to, you don't meet our criteria.
Do you think homelessness affects your mental health?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah. Just because where you are so isolated and away from everything and normal life, I can't understand. You just do go downhill a bit, and you just you do lose a bit of yourself after a while now, unfortunately.
After speaking to Glenn and hearing what he had to go through, I wanted to experience sleeping outside on a winter's night for myself. My crew and I are going to attempt sleeping outside on concrete on one of our crew members' property. All we all have is our camera equipment, blankets, sleeping bags and cardboard. The longer I'm out here, the more I realise that, God, it is horrible for people that have to do this every night. And, you know, I mean, after this experiment, I know that tomorrow night I'll go home and have a bed and it'll be all fine. But for a lot of people, it's not the same. They don't have that. So it's 2:30 a.m. I don't know what the temperature is right now, but it's really cold. I'm gonna try and sleep though. So it's 8 a.m. now on Friday morning. I was just freezing. People that have to do that in the city, you know, they're constantly thinking, are there people going to walk past and are they going to do something? Are they going to say something to me? You know, am I going to have something stolen from me? Now I have a slight understanding of what it's like to sleep in the weather. It just made me realise how lucky I am that I don't have to do this every night, because I couldn't. I've caught up with Gina Parker, a support worker at another house provided by the Benjamin Foundation. She is responsible for helping people that face homelessness get back on their feet. So could you tell us about more of the reasons why people are homeless these days?
I think for my experience, a lot of it is or can be family relationships, seems to be the main thing. We do accommodate a lot of young people who've been in the care system, and that generally means they might have been residential care, foster care. We also get young people who just aren't getting on with their families for whatever reason, and sometimes it's they can't get a job, and so families, mums get fed up with them, you know, not working. So I would say sort of relationship breakdowns is quite often the cause.
I can only imagine how awful it must feel to worry about where you're going to be sleeping the next night.
I think in sort of Norfolk they talk about sort of the hidden homeless, because we don't see a huge amount of street homelessness like you would in big cities, and majority of our young people do what's called sofa surfing, so they basically stay with their mum for a little while, then they go stay with their auntie, then they stay around their mates, and they never really know where they're going to be sleeping, and you know, only can do that for so long. Homelessness isn't just about rooflessness, it's about that support, and that's what we offer. We offer 24-hour support, so that we offer that stability, like I said, but there's also an awful lot more. A lot of it is about building relationships maybe with their families, Some of our young people will move back to their families, which again is a real success, because if you're 16 or 17 and you don't get on with your mum and it's been really difficult, but you can actually build that relationship and go back home, great.
From speaking to the staff, I'm now going to talk to Jamila, a resident at Forward Court.
I think without the Benjamin Foundation I probably would have been in either a hostel or, I don't know, on the streets, I imagine, yeah.
I can only imagine how horrible that must feel.
It's much more beneficial for me to be here than it was to live at home where I was, so yeah.
Well, it's lovely that you get so much support.
Yeah.
I think that's really important, you know, especially when you're a bit unstable about where you're living.
Yeah.
You know, so when did you get here?
I moved here in June of this year, and it was purely because my home life, I lived with my mum, my parents are divorced. We were too similar and our personalities clashed, and it was for the both of us that I had to leave, and it felt more that it would just be more beneficial, especially for my mental health, but for hers as well. Our relationship has gotten 100 times better since I've moved on, so it's definitely helped.
It's really interesting to see how the charity rehabilitates young people both physically and mentally. The success of their support shows there are solutions to homelessness, but there is so much more that needs to be done. In this programme, I've spoken to people involved at charities and to young people that have faced homelessness. And unless you or I are ever in a situation where being homeless is our only option, we will never understand how these people suffer. Waking up in the middle of the night not knowing if you could be robbed or even attacked. It's not fair, they're human beings. How long will it take for us to stop ignoring them and to face up to this problem?